Now, while it was originally believed the main reason Radahn refused to die was because he needed to continue to hold back the stars for what could be various different reasons, this may still be true, but I now think it goes quite a bit deeper than that. Welcome to Purge Evil, thank you for stopping by, and spoiler warning of course. From the description of the young lion's armor, it's revealed that Malenia, whose title is Blade of Miquella, which comes into play later, at the end of her fight with Radahn said to him, "Miquella awaits thee, O promised consort." And in the remembrance cutscene at the end of the DLC, Miquella is seen talking to his brother about him becoming a god, asking that brother, which we can only assume would be Radahn, to promise them that he will be Miquella's consort, though we don't actually hear Radahn's voice, leading me down a rabbit hole and to the making of this video. Okay, so, way before the Shattering, way before Radahn took control of the stars, Miquella made a vow to a young Radahn to make him his consort once he ascended to godhood, to essentially make him the Godfrey to his America, someone whom he looked up to with great admiration, mind you. Becoming King Consort would give him that same title that Godfrey held, and would bring Radahn even more glory and even more battles, or so he thought. Miquella knew this, and I believe he took full advantage of this when making his promise. Kind or not, manipulation was Miquella's greatest power. I believe Radahn may have accepted this promise of becoming his consort, hence the title after he's revived of Promised Consort. Malenia's words to Radahn at the end of their fight may suggest this as well, reminding him that he cannot escape this promise, he cannot escape his fate. Radahn accepting Miquella's vow when he was younger can further be implied by Radahn's greatsword's design from that time as opposed to his greatsword's design from his later years, being the ones that we acquire in the base game. The Star Scourge greatswords have a gravity crest etched over them, while the greatswords of Radahn, which were from before he took control of the stars mind you, have somewhat of a holy design across the blades, possibly signifying that these blades from his younger years may have actually been forged by Miquella himself, considering Miquella was also known to be quite the craftsman back then, according to what several item descriptions may suggest, so it is certainly plausible. The implication being that Radahn engraved the crest into his swords after he turned his back on the vow. Whether he was under Miquella's influence or not at the time of the promise is up for debate, but is ultimately irrelevant, I think. As Radahn grew older, he grew not only stronger, but wiser. And with this, I think he may have put together what Miquella was actually planning to do should he ascend to true godhood, which would be to essentially erase the golden order that Radahn loved so much. Being the goodest boy of the entire Elden Ring lore, my theory is that once he realized this, he vowed to himself to never fall, breaking free of Miquella's influence completely if he was ever under it to begin with. Aside from the plot armor of the Tarnished, I think this holds weight simply due to the fact that Radahn is still alive after a considerable amount of time has passed since he was afflicted with scarlet rot, still holding back the stars and still refusing to become Miquella's puppet. Because of his indomitable will to live on in defiance of his destiny, the plague of insanity and decay that came with the rot eating away at his brain and body would still not be enough for Radahn to forget about the promise of Miquella, and so he lives on, fighting and suffering for possibly hundreds of years until either he does eventually succumb to the rot or the Tarnished comes along. So why exactly doesn't Radahn want to become Miquella's consort? Be cured of the rot and be revived with a younger, healthier body so you can become even stronger, fight even more powerful enemies? If you're Radahn, that sounds like a dream come true, right? Considering his immense love for battle. So what could be so bad about Miquella's plans that even Radahn would turn his back on this deal? Aside from holding the stars back, why did Radahn fight death as hard as he did? Miquella's ultimate goal was to achieve godhood and usher in a new age of compassion. After achieving this, Miquella would need someone to carry out his will and rule over this new age, someone who was powerful enough so that no man nor creature could stand in his way if they were somehow able to obtain free will. Of course, the obvious choice for the new king of the world would be General Radahn himself. So what exactly was so bad about this new age of compassion, about Miquella becoming a true god, that Radahn no longer wanted a part of it? Well, firstly, it would mean a complete reset, erasing everything he once knew and loved, the glory of the Golden Order, his own Redmane people, and most importantly, his trusty steed Leonard. It would not only mean the end of these things that were so important to Radahn, but it would also mean the end of Radahn's hold on the stars, bringing about a fate that he had been desperately trying to avoid. This could be a whole other video, and there are some out there on this topic alone, but overall, Radahn holding back the stars is probably the most major piece of symbolism for his resistance to change. We know that the fate of the Carrion family is linked to the stars, and Radahn is certainly part of that family, being that his mother is Rennala. We also know that the fate of the gods themselves are linked to the stars in some way from the Amber Starlight item description, so this could have something to do with Miquella's fate as well, and this is heavily implied by the Amber Starlight being located literally in front of a statue of Miquella and Malenia. Furthermore, we know both the fates of the Carrion family and those connected to the Erd Tree were conjoined and linked together to the stars after the marriage of Radahn and Rennala. The point is, through everything he went through, from the stalemate battle with Malenia to the decay of his own mind, Radahn made sure to never let those stars slip from his grasp. Just thinking about the amount of power he had to be using for so long, on top of fighting someone like Malenia and not losing, is absolutely mind-boggling, and it just goes to show how much Radahn really refused to accept the inevitable. Another reason could be the simple nature of the world that Miquella wanted to create. A world with no conflict, with everyone charmed into docility. Essentially, a world with no free will. If you're Radahn, you need to swing your sword at somebody at least 47 times a day, so that just ain't gonna cut it. And then there's the idea of the honorable death, the literal whole point of the festival, which he would be robbed of in Rebirth, especially through the corpse of an omen, though I doubt Radahn actually knew about that part, but I digress. Having your soul taken away doesn't seem like something Radahn would be much into, especially in his later years, even if it did actually mean he would be able to engage in endless war. Redmane Freya, previously a soldier under Radahn, talks about the plan to bring back Radahn being fitting for him considering his love for war, but I think this was just her perspective on the matter being skewed by Miquella's influence. With all of that being said, Miquella's plan might have worked perfectly were it not for the Shattering. A time of complete and utter chaos for the Golden Order and the lands between, a time that Radahn was sure to enjoy, not even considering the fact that he was now in possession of a Great Rune. Also, the power of the Great Rune itself could be another reason for Radahn breaking free of Miquella's influence if he was ever under it. This is where Malenia comes into play. Knowing that Radahn was most likely having the time of his life during the Shattering, with all the endless battles and such, and realizing he was quickly running out of time, Miquella had reason to believe Radahn was not going to follow through with becoming his consort, and so he would have to take him by any means necessary. A promise is a promise after all. Miquella would send his twin sister Malenia to subdue Radahn, and the forces of the Halig Tree would engage in a huge conflict with the Redmanes. So even after Malenia, the woman who never lost a battle, was sent to kill him and nuke the entire continent when she couldn't defeat him to, at the very least, afflict him with scarlet rot in a last-ditch effort to bring him down, Radahn would continue to refuse death even with the rapid decay of his mind, holding up the stars and holding on to the knowledge of what will become of him and the world should he perish. He would be unstoppable, Miquella would be unstoppable, and the Golden Order and everything he ever loved, including Leonard, would be gone forever. I believe that even in his grotesque form, this thought would forever linger, possibly being the last thing he ever remembered before finally going mad. Clinging desperately to life, Radahn's force of will was so powerful that even with him losing his mind, none would be able to defeat him. More than just battling, he would do nearly anything to remain alive, even going so far as to not only cannibalize the corpses of his enemies, but his fallen allies as well. Not Leonard though, never Leonard. I believe this solidifies Radahn as even more of a hero, one who would dare to defy destiny itself, and one who was powerful enough to actually do so in more ways than one for such a long time. The man who refused to die in order to prevent his world's destruction, no matter the cost. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and join the Discord possibly. A special thank you to my patrons. You all are absolute legends, and your support truly means the world to me, so thank you. And until I catch you all in the next one, Purge Evil.